Um, since I'm okay, first of all, I'm just gonna put this camera for my reference. I'm gonna interview you both as a person working at an NGO and for your personal perspectives. Okay, so
Okay.
I just want to hear both your professional experience and your personal perspectives as a particular format of an interview I use. Hey, are you okay then if I use your name, or would you like? I mean,
You can
we
use
have
my
your
name.
face. Okay.
Yes.
So I am here with Martin Sokolov, and we're going to discuss the refugee crisis. We're currently at the wonderful Smolyan 4th NATO summer camp summit, and he's going to contribute his knowledge as. And where do you work again?
Currently, I'm appointed as a researcher at Sofia Security Forum.
And we are going to use his, experience working with the Sofia Security Forum and his personal perspectives and experience to understand a bit better the refugee crisis here in Bulgaria. So first of all, I just want to hear your age. We already know your occupation, and where you come from.
I'm from Bulgaria. I'm 26. I was born in 91.
Okay, perfect. So, my first question is, do you believe that refugees should be accepted into Bulgaria? Both refugees traveling to Bulgaria and traveling to the European Union. You can differentiate between those two categories if you would like, and why.
Need to understand for the concept of refugees because the majority of people, which are part of the migrant wave, the migrant crisis, which we're talking about, are actually financial migrants. That means that they're working for, or looking for better life, better prosperity, more opportunities to grow, the opportunity for their families to have more decent lives, whether they have one at the moment or planning to create one in Europe. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. There's a lot of migration was migration was a fact long before, and it's not just from the parts which in the Middle East and Asia and Africa. People, it's it's in their nature to look for something better for
Yeah.
themselves, for their families. Um, However, when you look at the migrants coming to Europe, I would like to point out first that a good amount of them are from Afghanistan. Of course, Afghanistan is not ultimately peaceful, but it's currently not officially considered a war-torn country. Also, a big issue with this poses the fact that the majority of them are young males aged 18 to 25, unwilling, most of them, to integrate.
Hmm.
That means there's going to be a clash ultimately. I'm not saying that they should all be turned back or they should be just sent back based on this fact. I'm saying that talking about countries and the EU, especially when we consider the fact that they're migrating to Europe and EU is the dominant factor in this region.
It's the pull factor.
Exactly, there's the pull factor, there's the push factor, but mechanisms to integrate them should be developed.
Hmm.
That means it should not be a synonym of assimilation. Their cultures, their traditions need to be respected, of course, but also they need to understand, and of course this needs to be communicated very efficiently. They need to understand that there are some things that they cannot do, which they consider traditional, and there are some good examples of that. In Sweden, for example, they not only give classes in English to teach them how to integrate, they give them classes on what is acceptable and what is not. And some
Now, I mean, would you say, I'm just going to interrupt, I mean, some things like the particularly controversial parts of what is acceptable and what is not is something, let's say, something more cultural, something more, involved with the religion, for example, like wearing the burqa, like, for example, more elements that some may claim is just an acceptable element of Islamic culture and religion.
that's a
Would you?
populist claim. No, I disagree with that. There are other issues that need to be addressed, which some people would consider more a part of their culture. But the burqa was claimed, and it was pretty much a way flag for the populist movements. Like the
Okay.
burqa is a problem. It's not a problem.
Okay.
Let me say this: that this is a personal opinion. I'm not talking this as a researcher, but the burqa should be no issue. Not the burqa, not the burkini. The way women dress, the way people dress, should not be an issue, especially in states that claim to be liberal and tolerant.
Dobre. Um, so I mean, you specified that economic migrants should be differentiated from refugees,
Yes.
and economic migrants do not, just to specify, should not be allowed into the European Union.
No, they should be allowed, but the refugees, the ones who
Should be prioritized.
should be prioritized.
Um, just, um, and yes. Now the question is, so you have a somewhat moderate approach to refugees, and I'll say, have you, through your research, through your work in this subject, come across? Do you have an explanation for why a sizable amount of Bulgarians are against migrants altogether, both refugees, economic migrants? They believe, many of them state that these are all one group, that they all are a threat. This ranges from claims of that they rape and pillage, to more reasonable claims that refugees are not true refugees, that they could stay. Many claim that, for example, why don't they stay in Jordan or Turkey if they're just refugees seeking a temporary place of stay to wait for a war. Why do you think that many, having explained your position, that many Bulgarians have a differing position?
Okay, first let's the Jordan and the Jordan factor and other countries around them. We're going back to the pull factor. The EU, Europe can offer much more prospect for them. So if you had to run away from a war-torn country, run for your life, it's probably your instinct to go and try for the best.
Mm-hmm.
Europe is the best opportunity it has to offer. It's gonna be kind of difficult to explain.
But why do you think,
Bulgarians appear to be rather intolerant of the refugees, and it's gonna be difficult because
a good amount of Bulgarians, we have to specify.
it's a good amount, and I would certainly say the majority. First of all, Bulgaria does not have a good track record of integrating minorities. Our best example of that is the Rome minority, in which the policies of integration have failed on almost all level and of both. I would say actually on the three sides. One is the Romas themselves, one is the government, and one is the public sector, the civil society. Now, the Romans very much stick to their traditions, but we have actually neighborhoods in which even police cars do not go into. They have left them to basically form their own small societies. At the same time, a lot of money is being invested to educate, to share experiences and how to integrate them, but there's no monitoring procedure to follow up on what has been done and if actually anything is being done. And that is very problematic. So Bulgarians, with this experience, with this idea in mind, they think that the state will ultimately fail to integrate people who are coming to Bulgaria. And they are not that many. We're talking about currently on the territory of Bulgaria. I do not think there are more than 3,000 refugees officially. So we're not talking about a huge number. And just to bring back the topic of integrating the minorities in Bulgaria, they're being used. They're used by political parties. They're used for private interests, and they're being utilized basically. So it serves certain interests for them to remain uneducated, unintegrated, and just be outside of the general public and only be addressed when it comes time for voting, for example.
Now, this actually brings me to my question that I would specifically ask you as a researcher, is that have you seen political rhetoric? And I mean, it's I've commonly heard, but I just want to hear your perspective on how political rhetoric has responded to migration, right? How it's been altered in the last 5 years. Now, I want to ask you, especially as a student of international relations, very specifically also, whether you believe that this political rhetoric has a relationship to the populace it targets, right? In a social constructivist or post-structuralist perspective. What I mean is it that the rhetoric is responding to a reaction by Bulgarians, or is the rhetoric the one that is fueling the reaction to the Bulgarians? So which way is this causality moving?
Rhetoric is responding. Let me start with that. Rhetoric is responsive. And the way that the rhetoric has changed within the last 5 years, I would say that in terms of populist and far right and far left nationalist movements, it has simply changed its target. Before that, our nationalist parties used to target Muslims in Bulgaria. They used to target Roma, and now with refugees, they have moved up the targeting scale.
Uh-huh.
And another part of the rhetoric is just blending them all together in one, as the outsiders, as the
Yeah.
different, and that poses a great problem because it pretty much it destroys all possible situation having adequate debate, an adequate argument, an adequate conversation, if you will, just to address proper policies, proper the exact problems, if you will.
Hmm.
And this leaves the situation in the way of a stalemate.
Two last questions then. First of all, the European Union, USA, Russia. Um, this is a challenging question, and you can choose selectively what you will evaluate. But can you evaluate these countries slash, slash alliances, I shall call them, response to refugees as, strong, poor, effective, ineffective, good, bad. Just give us a brief evaluation, of which ones you think is better, what, particularly Bulgaria can learn from which one, and so forth.
Bulgaria is an EU member state. What we take up as a decision needs to be coordination with Brussels. It needs to be the common stance. My personal belief and my position and the research I have done points out to the quotas as the best possible situation. That for now has been scrapped off the table. But if we want to have in Europe, in the European Union, we always say about the equal sharing of funding. We say about the equal sharing of the blessings of democracy, of free market. Is that part we need to take this example. We need to work first and foremost about cooperating and working with our partners. Now, in this situation, of course, the U.S. is a partner, but and it can aid in a lot of ways, but especially in the situation in Syria, the situation in the Middle East in general, it can provide the military backbone.
Uh-huh.
That's the situation in which the U.S. can provide the best logistics, provide the best equipment, provide to actually a large extent even the best strategies. With Russia, Russia is going to be facing this problem in the future, and they're going to be even more because Russia has a great amount of foreign fighters fighting on the sides
Uh-huh.
of ISIS, and also a decent amount which are, well, I would call them again little green men, the ones we saw in Ukraine. Again, we have similar little green men fighting on the sides of the government of Bashar al-Assad. Also, there's a huge, or yet to be huge, but it will be, private military contractors from Russia who are educating local soldiers, who are engaging in terms of like guns for hire. They also have a lot of people from their own Chechnya who are fighting and engaged in the battles of Syria, and those people are going to return. And Russia knows about it, knows that they're there, but I don't see that they have a policy to address that beyond of just relying on Ramzan Kadyrov. And
That's
that's
true.
not a long-term solution.
It's not a short-term solution either, really.
Russia's politics regarding Chechnya and its Muslim population is basically to enrich the local oligarch and give him the freedoms that he needs in order just to keep security there.
Yeah, it's the classic Russian system.
Affirmative.
Yes. And my last question is, I'm wondering if I should change it up from the classic one, because I know, I'm assuming your perceptions in the last 5 years of the migration wave have not changed drastically.
Hmm.
Oh, no, right? Well, then I would ask you a different question. Just, do you think that this, considering everything we just discussed for the last 14 minutes and 18 seconds, do you think that the migration crisis, has it contributed, how has it affected the stability of Bulgarian society? And I would define stability of Bulgarian society by a unified, by a sense of identity, by a sense of consensus, by a sense of community. And I'm not saying, that you have to feel that everyone in Bulgaria is the same, but, the sense that we have a, a strong, solidified nation state where we can agree, where we feel that we are moving towards progress, so forth, so forth.
Well, it has certainly tested it, but that's most of all in the terms of the outside influence. That, and by outside I do not, I mean that it's not directly the migrants coming to the homes of Bulgarians. It's not that they're engaging with them. It's the way that they're being represented in media, the way they're being used in populist rhetoric, and they're being used and described as a threat to the lifestyle of Bulgarians, the lifestyle, their traditions, of the cohesion of society, and ultimately they become an excuse. The problems of Bulgarian society, cohesion and stability, were present long before
Uh-huh.
the migration wave. Now they're just an excuse for a problem which was
So just
preceding
yeah.
that
Mhm.
crisis.
Understood. Well, thank you. We surely just analyzed and took apart the migration crisis a bit in Bulgaria, um, and I mean, thank you for putting in the time. You know, we put in a good 60 minutes, but I think it was worth it for our audience, for me as a researcher, because you truly do have an inside glance at this and a unique perspective. You know, within your research and just being a member of this society. Um, and and as a I'd say a Western-looking member of Bulgaria is surely interesting to hear a perspective that differs from something I would have heard from Dinkovilov.
If you have any further questions, I will be happy to answer them.
Thank you.